The sorting ceremony is about to begin. The 4 houses are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Lately, I have been binge watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I am obsessed with their family. I finally understand what Jennifer Lawrence has been talking about all these years. I love watching all their different personalities, seeing how they interact with each other. So today I thought it would be fun to host my own little sorting ceremony and put all of the Kardashians into their Hogwarts houses. Kourtney Kardashian, Ravenclaw. I mean this in the sweetest way possible, but Kourtney is kind of like the oddball in her family. She completely exudes Luna Lovegood vibes. She's always interested in learning something new, but even more than that, as the show progresses, you really watch her challenge herself to gain new perspectives on life. There's a great example of this at the beginning of season 19. Kourtney starts talking about how her family never really showed physical acts of affection when she was growing up. And so she finds this place called a cuddle sanctuary, where literally the people's actual job is to teach their clients how to cuddle. So it's really humorous, and she and her friends end up in this huge cuddling train, which is just adorable. But Kourtney really takes it seriously. She stops and examines what her childhood was like, how her parents taught her and her siblings to show their affection to each other, and then fast forward how that actually affected her as an adult. So it's very interesting to watch her think about things, and her approach to life is definitely Ravenclaw. Kim Kardashian, Slytherin. Now we know on this channel that Slytherin is not the house for bad people, so I just want to get that squared away right now. So when I put somebody in Slytherin, it is not a reflection on their moral character or saying that they're a bad person, obviously, because Slytherin's my house. Kim and Kourtney have wildly different personalities, and they get into so many fights because of this. But if you really break it down and like really pay attention, you see that they do have some core values that are very similar, and one of those is that they both love to learn. But the reason that Kim is in a different house is that Kourtney, her approach to learning is that she just values knowledge for the sake of knowledge. She just wants to learn and surround herself with interesting ways of thinking, and that is what makes her feel fulfilled. Kim, on the other hand, is different. Kim wants to gain new knowledge in order to apply it to something, whether it's for a certain cause or bettering herself as a person or accomplishing a certain task. So a great example of this is in season 14. Kim recruits her entire family to go and take this media training course. So obviously, as the Kardashians, they get a lot of really invasive and controversial questions in their interviews. And so rather than being caught off guard and just kind of answering these things on the fly, Kim really wants to take her time and be prepared. So she actually hires this PR firm to come in and teach her and her family how to handle these questions better. And she totally gets into it. Like, it's actually kind of cute. She has her little notepad and her pen, and she's writing notes, and she's going back and watching footage of herself in old interviews and analyzing it with the PR team. So she's very intent on improving herself. And obsessive self-improvement, let me just say, that is a huge Slytherin quality. Another thing about Slytherin is that they are extremely determined people, especially when it comes to achieving their goals. What can I say? We're scrappy. And Kim demonstrates this best in her journey to becoming a lawyer. She caught so much flack for doing this. Everyone on the internet was bashing her. Nobody thought that she could pull it off. But she didn't care about that. And she actually found a way to do it that fit around her life. Obviously, as a mom of 4 and just as a Kardashian, she couldn't exactly drop everything and go back to law school. So she found a way to do this apprenticeship with a law firm in San Francisco and basically get her law education that way. She found a loophole in the California law system and milked it for everything that it was worth. And honestly, as a fellow Slytherin, I totally applaud her for it. Corey Gamble, Hufflepuff. So some of you may not actually know who Corey is. He's basically Kris Jenner's longtime boyfriend, and so I thought it would be fun to include him in this as well, since he's featured a lot on the show. So the thing about Hufflepuffs is they often get mislabeled as like the nice house. And don't get me wrong, I know a ton of very lovable Hufflepuffs, but that is not actually what makes someone belong in this house. Hufflepuffs are obsessed with fairness. That is how their mind works. So think of it like this. You know, back when you were a kid and you would play like Monopoly with your parents, some people had parents that would just kind of bend the rules and let them win so that they would have a good time. Whereas other people had parents who were like very strict on the rules and who kind of forced their kids to lose so that they would learn how the game works, and that's just kind of life sometimes. Sometimes you lose, and that's what's fair. That is how a Hufflepuff thinks about things. They value justice and unadulterated equality. These things do not necessarily bode well for somebody in the Kardashian clan, because the thing is, there's so many different people. Everyone's got their own opinions, their own emotions, and in order to kind of survive in this ecosystem, you really have to be willing to put up with other people's drama. And I think that's why we've seen Corey struggle a lot over the years to be accepted into the family, is that he is not afraid to call people out on their crap. And he does not put up with it. He's very opinionated. He totally is unafraid to express himself. He's basically just not intimidated by the rest of the family. And a pretty crazy example of this is in season 17. So a little bit of background first. Kourtney and Scott have a very interesting parenting style. And it's not exactly a secret that they're not big on discipline. So they're telling this story one night over dinner about how one of their kids actually scratched a nanny like in her face. So Corey is listening to this story and he just kind of makes this like offhanded comment like, oh my goodness, if she ever did something like that to me, I would totally whip her butt. But Kourtney and Scott take it super seriously and they start saying things like, oh my goodness, we don't feel safe having our kids around you anymore. Like, what is wrong with you? And it starts to get really heated. And so you would think that at that point, Corey would kind of backtrack just a little, calm everything down and be like, you know what? It's fine. They're your kids. Like, do whatever you want. But no, he keeps pushing on this and it ends up turning into like a full-fledged fight that lasts for like days. And while, yes, I do totally respect someone for standing up for what they believe in and not backing down, but at a certain point, you just kind of have to let things go. And that's definitely an area where some Hufflepuffs really struggle on striking a balance between those two. Khloe Kardashian, Hufflepuff. Khloe was definitely the hardest one for me to sort because I had to kind of separate what her persona is and kind of how she initially comes across versus like her actual core personality traits and values. Because when you first start watching Khloe, she is like larger than life. She is very extroverted, very spunky, and she doesn't shy away from a challenge or a new adventure. So on all accounts, she really comes across as like a stereotypical Gryffindor. But when I was really able to sit down and piece together her core personality traits, I realized that she is totally Hufflepuff. She's incredibly loyal, not just to like her close family members, but even like business associates, friends, romantic partners. She's extremely patient, like almost to a fault. And she's definitely, I would say, the least confrontational out of the rest of the Kardashians. If you've seen even one episode of this show, you know that these siblings get into fights all the time. But Khloe is actually the least likely person to get into an argument. She usually ends up kind of mediating arguments between her other siblings. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes she helps them get to a constructive resolution and everyone's happy. But then sometimes she kind of takes it a little too far. A hilarious example of this is in season 16. Kendall and Kourtney get into a fight about something that Kourtney said, and Kendall was being sensitive, and I don't even remember. But Khloe gets in the middle of it, and so Kourtney will confide in her, and then she'll turn around and go tell Kendall what Kourtney said, and then vice versa. And Khloe kind of like levels up this fight without intending to. So, to teach her a lesson, Kendall and Kourtney actually stage a confrontation out in the backyard where they're like physically fighting and like wrestling, and Khloe comes out, she's like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? And they just sort of teach her to mind her own business. Scott Disick, Hufflepuff. So a lot of times when you're sorting someone into their Hogwarts house, you start with their good qualities, so like their creativity or their bravery. But actually with Scott, I found it was more helpful to start with his flaws and his insecurities and then work backwards, because he is definitely the one who has grown and matured the most over the years. So he was also kind of difficult to sort initially. He was a huge partier back in the day. He struggled with a lot of substance abuse, and he was just on the whole really irresponsible and not very reliable. But as the show progressed and after he and Kourtney broke up, he actually matured a lot, and he turned into a wonderful father and certainly a very entertaining member of the family. The two things I noticed about Scott that really kind of sealed the deal for why I put him in Hufflepuff are, first of all, he values honesty more than like anything. So when he and Kourtney broke up and she started dating someone new, she was really like evasive about it to Scott, and she didn't really open up to him about like her relationship status or who she was with. And this bugged the crap out of Scott. And it was more than just those hurt feelings from their relationship. It was the fact that she wasn't being honest with him. And so when I saw his reaction to that whole scenario, and when I heard him explain how he just wished that she would be honest with him, that was my first clue. Then I saw another episode where, again, he was kind of dealing with the fallout of their breakup, and he really started to get insecure about his place in the family. So Scott actually lost his parents when he was 30 years old. They both died like really close together, like within months of each other. It was so sad. And so really his family is the Kardashians, even though he and Kourtney are no longer together. And so when they initially broke up, he was so scared that they were going to like kick him out of the family, or that he wasn't going to get to like be involved in family events because of his relationship history with Kourtney. And so you saw him really just like crumble under the weight of all of this worrying. And eventually Kris was able to come in and reassure him that like they absolutely viewed him as part of the family. But it was really interesting to see just how much Scott valued that sense of community in his life. I think that Hufflepuffs, more than any of the other houses, really like feed off of their sense of a strong community in life. And that can be a small community, even just with like a romantic partner, or it can be a large community with like a sorority or a huge extended family, for example. So those two things for sure made me think that Scott belonged in Hufflepuff. Kylie Jenner, Slytherin. There can be ambitious people in any of the four houses, but the thing that really sets Slytherins apart is our any means necessary mentality. And that absolutely applies to Kylie Jenner. So if you don't know the history, Kylie was very young when their reality show started. And so as a teenager, she started banking up money that she was earning from the show. And when she got really into makeup, she came to her mom and was like, I want to start this cosmetics company. And the story goes that her mom said she could, as long as she brought her own money into it. And of course, you probably already know she went on to develop this wildly popular cosmetics company called Kylie Cosmetics. But Kylie has received a lot of criticism over how she built her business, particularly in 2018 when Forbes had her on their America's Women Billionaires list. Specifically, they caught a ton of flack for using the term self-made billionaire to describe Kylie, because people online were saying like, oh, she was born into privilege and she had all this wealth to work with coming into it. There's definitely a lot of people in the world who think that you're only successful if you do it on certain terms. Like it doesn't count unless you did it on your own without anybody else's help. But the thing about Slytherins is we don't care about that. It doesn't matter to us if you built your business with $0 in your bank account or 500 million. If you work hard and you invest your time and your money into your business, that counts as a success in our book. And so the reason that Kylie really belongs in Slytherin to me is that she does things her own way. She is not afraid to go against the grain and do the unexpected. Actually, she has a really great quote from her spin-off show Life of Kylie, where she says, "I do feel like people don't take me seriously as a businesswoman because of my age and my reputation, but I feel like they're starting to. I like to prove people wrong." And that is like the ultimate Slytherin statement. We love to do the unexpected and to prove people wrong. Kendall Jenner, Gryffindor. For a lot of those same reasons, I almost put Kendall in Slytherin as well, but I think you'll see why she totally belongs in Gryffindor. She is so brave. She's the only one out of her siblings who kind of went off and built her own career separate from her family. With all of the other Kardashians, they kind of kept their personal brand within the family. So like they do the show together, they make public appearances together, they do social media posts together, and their brands all kind of intertwine. But Kendall is different. She went out and she became a model. And yeah, you could say that fashion does sort of fall into the realm of the Kardashian brand, but actually Kendall's work is very separate from her family. And she's even spoken about the fact that being from the Kardashian family actually made her career a lot harder in the beginning because it was really difficult for her to get casting agents to take her seriously since they had already seen her on the show and already had like a certain perception of her in their minds. And not only that, but like to have such a successful and well-established family within a certain field and then basically go off and decide that you're gonna do something totally different and completely on your own, like that takes some serious guts. It took a lot of courage for her to step out on her own separate from that support system, and I totally admire her for that. Also, Gryffindors tend to really be into like new and exciting experiences, and obviously as a model, Kendall is traveling the world all the time, getting to see all these cool places and meet all these interesting people. And she has said that she is definitely the most tomboyish girl in her family, so she's always doing things like riding jet skis, horses, riding roller coasters, and so to me, she is obviously Gryffindor. Kris Jenner, Slytherin. And finally, we have the one, the only, Kris Jenner. So I think it's probably pretty obvious, given her reputation as the momager of the group, that Kris belongs in Slytherin. I mean, she basically took a family that, by all accounts, was pretty uninteresting, like for the entertainment industry, and she turned them into a multi-billion-dollar brand. So if that is not Slytherin, I don't know what is. But another interesting reason that I think Kris belongs in my house is how much attention she pays to her public image. Obviously, a lot of celebrities care about their image and even just people in general, but Slytherins, we kind of take it to another level. We really overanalyze how other people perceive us. A super funny example of this is way back in season 6. Kris starts having bladder problems, and the problem she has is actually super common, especially for women in their 40s and 50s. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about, but she is like so self-conscious about it. And so when Khloe tells her to go to the doctor, she will not go. So Khloe basically starts teasing her about it in order to try and get her to get it checked out. And Kris totally freaking flips her lid. Like, Khloe brings it out in public while they're out shopping, and Kris takes it super seriously, like she's so embarrassed. It's kind of sweet, actually. So it's very clear that Kris wants her image to be curated and very professional, and that is totally Slytherin. Our sorting ceremony has come to a close, but the real question is, did I get it right? Would the sorting hat approve? Let me know in the comments down below what house you think the Kardashians belong in. And also let me know if there's any way I can be praying for you or encouraging you this week. 71% said Scott Disick belongs in Slytherin. That is not right. Kim, yeah, Kim is in Slytherin for sure. Jonathan is in Gryffindor. Yeah,